it's some people have it in them. They are naturally intuitive about the people around them. They are sensitive to the environment. They know how to make the most of what life throws at them. Others are brought up with specific set of rules, and so they're used to structure and doing things along the lines of policy and procedure, and can't think outside that. But leaders can be developed. I mean, leadership is a big topic now. There are so many training programs for it. It's not something that can happen overnight. So that's the other aspect of training. When you have managers that you want to groom into leaders, you must know that it won't happen overnight. You can share ideas with them, but it's a behavior. So that takes time.
You said I shouldn't say leaders versus managers because you don't want to set the two against each other.
Yes.
Because I initially thought that there are certain contexts that require management and there are other contexts that require leadership. For example, if you came into an organization which was in a flux with no proper rules and procedures and there was no adherence to standards, you would expect a manager to bring some semblance of direction to the place.
Right.
So in that context, you need a manager and not necessarily a leader. But in other contexts where they need to be inspired to go higher, procedures may be there, things may be working fine, but they are not motivated, they can't perform better. You need somebody who would inspire them with a vision to lead. That's how I was perceiving the topic. But the way you're proceeding, you suggest that we shouldn't look at it that way.
No. If what you described is a company that perhaps is in development and one that is already developed, let's talk about Africa. Does Africa need managers or leaders? Africa needs both. Okay, we need structured people who understand systems and processes, but we also need people who are willing to take people along with them to ensure that the structures and processes survive, that they evolve as the people evolve. So it's not good to separate the two. That's telling somebody who is very focused on processes and systems that you can never be a people person. But if he's not a people person, how is he going to ensure that the brilliant structure that he put in place is working?
Because I bet people say this guy is just not a leader. He doesn't have it in him because leaders are born. He doesn't inspire people. It's not in his nature to be a leader. So let's make a manager out of him. Whereas
yeah,
you follow me?
Yeah, I do. But what is a leader? A popular person? Not necessarily. A leader must also understand what the systems are, the required processes that will get his vision to where it should be. He may not necessarily be the one who will implement it. A leader must also be able to see through his people, understand them, and know who will be able to handle the development of these systems or implementation of these procedures. He doesn't have to have everything encapsulated in him. But when we say that this person is a manager, he doesn't have leadership in him. Has anyone bothered to develop or tap into it? It's a matter of comprehension of what leadership requires. If a manager believes that to become a leader means I have to drop my principles and be a people-loving person, it may not suit them. It may not be what they want. But understanding what good leadership is, that it will actually make your life easier for you to be able to have more time to strategize and see the larger picture and lead people there. That, I think most people would want to aspire to that.
So ideally, this is one person who is both leading and managing.
This is one person who is a leader who appreciates management.
A leader who appreciates management.
Yes.
But the act is leading, not managing.
The act is leading. Because, like I said, if you have a good leader, they can tell amongst their team members who will be able to manage these systems, who is good at managing procedures, who is good at doing this and this and that. But a leader must not negate management or a manager. No. They should be able to tap into that management's creativity. We have creativity in each one of us.
But in terms of an organizational structure, you would prefer a leader at the top who knows how to deploy management skills and apply management principles to driving the organization forward.
Absolutely. How do you become a manager? You become a manager because you're skilled at what you do. Then suddenly you have to look after people. People don't come to work as robots or machines. They come as human beings with feelings and aspirations and desires and values that have to match the company's values.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't care about what's going on in any one person in the company, but you're now good at what you have been doing, so they say manage everyone else
Mm-hmm.
who are good at what they do.
Mm.
You you have to move to that area of leadership, and that's the only way to ensure that you make the most of what you've inherited as a group of people who are there to deliver the company's vision.
Mm.
I mean, if you look at systems and procedures, a system, a machine, one machine can do the work of 50 ordinary people. No machine can do the work of one extraordinary man.
Mm.
So you need a leader to drive the vision of any company. And companies are faced with, increasingly complex matters in today's world. We have companies that have to set 6 times performance requirements than they did 30 years ago. So you have all this complexity going on, and that brings a lot of chaos. Do you want somebody who is there to just control, or somebody who is there and knows how to deploy the systems and procedures and people that they have to achieve what the company wants to achieve?
So let's talk about how do you develop or groom leaders. You've already defined who a leader is. I'm sure nobody's confused about that. So how do you?
Have I?
Okay, actually you could if you want to. So let's spend a bit of time on leaders.
Okay.
So who is a leader, and then let's go into how do you groom or train or prepare or create?
Well, we have different types of leaders. If you look through history, we have the very forceful management type of leader. I mean, Adolf Hitler was a leader. He moved people to do things. Whether they understood it or not, he was able to convince them, to influence. So we have what I would call a contagious or a contained leader. A contagious leader will leave, and the people will carry on as though he was still there. We have so many examples in business with even Apple. Looking at Steve Jobs, in his absence, Apple is still thriving. They still have that vision, and they're going forward. But in our context, I think what Africa right now needs is transformational leaders. People who are willing to sacrifice, make influence in a lasting way. They change minds. They don't just conduct. They inspire and grow people. They're problem solvers. And transformational leaders usually change things for the better. So it's not just, okay, I'm here at the bottom line, etc., etc. How do you groom leaders? That tough one. We could be here all day, Bernard. I can give you 3 things to look at when you talk about transformational leaders. A transformational leader is somebody who has mastered themselves. They know who they are, what their values are. They also are willing to listen to others. They wonder about how they show up, because you might believe your values are so and so, but whether you are demonstrating them, whether people actually sense it when they encounter you in the first second, that's another matter. So self-mastery is a big thing for transformation leaders. You have to know yourself, and then hopefully what you hold as true to you is what people see and sense, and what you actually communicate to them. Self-mastery. That's one. The second thing is action. How you demonstrate these values, how you actually implement the things that you say you will do, and how you carry people along with you. Are you ready to serve the people you're with? Roll up your sleeves and get in there and do the things that will convince people that it's possible to do what you say we should do. Because if you're telling me to do something and I see that you are not, you're so far removed from that particular action, it doesn't convince others to follow. So all this helps in the influencing of people to get people to buy into that vision.
So there's self mastery, there's action, and what was the third one?
The third one is groom leaders. You must also create leaders. You have to think about the long term. Okay, so you are now able to convince people. You've managed to infuse in them some of your values, but what happens when you're not there? Sustainability. These are transformational leaders. They look to connect, they live their values, and then it carries on after they're gone.
So transformational leaders do not leave a vacuum when they leave.
No.
Wow. Before I even delve into this, you gave me two broad categorizations. You mentioned contained stroke contagious. I'm not sure if that's what you use.
Yes.
And you mentioned transformational.
Yes.
But I've heard other things like positional leader, a functional leader, and all kinds of descriptors. How you choose to only give two?
Well, I mentioned that you can put them contained or contagious. A contained leader. A contained leader is the type of leader who doesn't think in the long term, doesn't think post me. They only think in their time. You know, the cult of personality, everything is about what they are doing and what they're achieving now. In the future, when they're not there, well, that's it. But the third aspect of unleashing potential in others, creating leaders, is what ensures that your life's work is not a waste. So that, to me, if you can do that, then you're a contagious leader. You infect others with your vision, with your passion for the good things that you want to achieve. And I mean, to be a leader and not be intentional, most leaders are very intentional in everything they do. They understand exactly why they are putting out this information or how they want it to operate or impact on the people they communicate with. Yeah.
So three things about transformational leaders: self-mastery, action, and groom leaders. So do you have examples of transformational leaders?
Oh, yes.
Talk to us about some of them.
If I speak to you about Gandhi, who succeeded after Gandhi?
Not sure I know who they are.
Or Martin Luther King?
Not sure it was a replacement either.
There wasn't an actual
Jesse
person.
Jackson? Oh.
No, but then
Not really, yeah.
What they did carried on after them.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so it isn't always because they've grown many leaders. That's why you are wondering which one.
True. So not just one person.
Not just one person. They create other leaders. They build people up and unleash their potential in them. Yes.
But these are very high levels of people. You are referring to Martin Luther King and Gandhi. This is like the stratosphere of human examples.
There are so many people, managers, who become great leaders, who leave a team of people who cry when they're leaving. I mean, in my working life in Ghana, I was fortunate to have two contagious leaders. One was Ghanaian, the other one was Lebanese. These were principled people who lived their principles. They were also very compassionate people. So when they disciplined you, you took it in good faith, intention. The intention was never to harm. Anytime you encountered them, you knew they were bringing good stuff. And even if the moment required a bit of harsh words to straighten you, to put you back on track, these leaders can tell you the bad news, and you will accept it. So it's not high up in the stratosphere. When you ask me for transformational leaders, I mentioned Martin Luther King and Gandhi because we all know them. But bringing it down to our context, in even the factories, when you go to some of the factories in Ghana, there are supervisors who are well loved by their people. If you ask the people, oh, you like him because he's very kind? Oh, he's kind, but he's strict. He's also straight. You know, they feel safe around these leaders because they know what the boundaries are. It's clearly defined. These are our values. This is what I stand for. So if you're working with me and I'm supervising you, a supervisor could be a great leader. Yes.
In the context of a business, we are looking. Should businesses be looking for managers to become leaders? or how should a business approach this, or what does all this mean for a business organization? Because again, the unit for discussion for the management month is really a business, whether it's a small or large or business.
Yes.
What does all this mean for a business like ours?
Well, I have learned the hard way, Bernard. When the whole process starts at recruitment, at the recruitment level, I think that businesses should have for attitude and train for skill. Of course, you want to see that the person has a certain level of education, has a certain appreciation of whatever area they're supposed to come into. But invariably, I mean, most companies have a way of doing things. So even if you find a great marketeer in the telco business and you're bringing them to food, you're still going to have to train them at some point. So the focus shouldn't be so much on the skill set as more than it should be more on the attitude of this person. Obviously, also, whichever position you're going to occupy will really determine even more the attitude, what type of attitude you're looking for. Within the attitudes, you find the values of this person. And we need to find a way to help people clarify their own personal values. We like to do that because of the word personal. I mean, why do I want to know if this person is a Christian or believes in monogamy? But every organization has its own set of values. This person you're bringing into the organization, their personal values, is it aligned with the company's values? It isn't. It takes a very long time, a lot of resources wasted to try and get them to rethink in another way. But it's not impossible.
So hire for attitude and train for skill, and
Yes.
look at their values. So in essence, look at the soft issues, the so-called softer side issues, not the hardcore things.
Well, yes, you look for the hardcore things too, but once you've got, let's say, 4 final candidates, how are you going to pick which one? Then the attitudes is very critical. You really have to look at that. HR studies have found that technical skills only represent 20% of the reason people perform well at work. 20%.
Wow.
Yes.
Technical skills.
Technical skills.
20%.
20%. The other 80% is embodied in things like decision making, assertiveness, authenticity, commitment to growth, consideration, emotional stability, enthusiasm, self-control, self-reliance, initiative, flexibility. You know these words.
But
so
these are interesting things. Nobody teaches you these things.
No.
Decision making, assertiveness, authenticity, self-control.
But the questions you ask in an interview will help you sift out these things. What matters to you in a work environment? We don't tend to ask that. This is our environment, come and work in it. That's it. But asking the person who wants to come and work for you, what matters to you in a work environment, will reveal a lot of things. What's the best way to deal with conflict at work? We usually ask, give me a scenario where you had to decide. Dilemma, we give them dilemma questions, hoping that we will decipher something. Be specific about what it is you want to hear. You want to have an insight into the person's value system. What motivates you? How do you define professional success? Not everyone defines it as money. So you need to know if this person fits into this organization already with their values.
I can gain all these things from questions. Because I mean, could you not observe? Could you not? Are there not tests? Because I mean, some people are quite smart in giving great answers.
Right.
So, are you able to discern decisiveness, assertiveness, authenticity, self-control, and all these beautiful virtues that you listed?
Obviously, in a 20-minute interview, it's tough. But I know organizations that set up an activity day for the people they interview, and they put them into groups, and they give them scenarios to work out, and then they observe them. I did that. No, not like guinea pig. I did that in Ghana. When I came to Ghana, I was supposed to recruit 24 junior advisors. The junior advisor role was a new function, was a new office. Nobody had done it before, and I had 6 weeks to recruit 24 junior advisors. I put them all in a room, gave them scenarios, observed how they form their groups. The ones who say, "You be the leader," like, "I'm grand and I've bestowed on you leadership." The ones who say, "I'll be the leader," because they always used to. You have to observe these things. So it depends on the level of recruitment, obviously. Whether this person is coming in a critical place, then take time in the recruitment process.
I would love you to spend a bit more time talking about these values. I think we rushed through them because it's not exact science, but you're saying for attitude, train for skill, and you're looking at values, because we are all trying to decipher who will become a great leader.
Yes.
Because nobody comes with a label on his head, "I'm a great leader." Now you are using decisiveness, assertiveness, authenticity. What does that even mean?
Authenticity.
Being authentic, being original,
being yourself.
Being yourself.
Yes. So in an environment where 1 minute you go with the flow, you haven't really decided who you are. You haven't mastered yourself. And so depending on how it will be perceived, or depending on who you're talking to, you change a little. That is not being authentic. It is different if you're communicating a message and your target audience is
different.
So you have to
flexible
to highlight the areas that is relevant to that target audience. But in scenarios where you have somebody who will tell you that, "Oh, personal freedom means a lot to me," and then they are confronted with peace of mind. Personal freedom, the absence of it is what? Let's say slavery. Would you choose that personal freedom over peace of mind?
Good point.
Because a slave who has peace of mind is doing quite fine, actually. So the company itself, the organization, before it goes out there to say, "Come and join me," must also define its own set of values. What is critical to achieve the organization's vision? To realize this thing that we say we are, that we can do, before they go out. And when they go out, then you can look at other people's value systems and see who will fit. It doesn't always have to be exact. We need some of the opposite to get things going. Yeah. So it depends on the role. Who do we need here? We need somebody with A, B, C, D. Let's go look out for that person.
It's 1:30. We're discussing leading and managing. Our guest is Cecilia Dei-Anang, who is helping us understand what leadership really is. And we'll also talk a bit about management. If you have any questions, send us a comment by SMS 054-998-6996. You could also send us a WhatsApp message on the same line, 054-998-6996. Quick announcement: the 5th call for proposals of the Skills Development Fund is running till 21st July 2014. COTVET is receiving skills and technology development proposals from businesses in the private sector for possible funding. The SDF Secretariat is organizing an open day for prospective applicants who wish to make inquiries or require some more clarity or technical support on issues related to their proposed development. Now, walk into our offices Thursday, 26th June from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for more information on this. At all FDF officials at the COTVET unit will be fully available to address your concerns. SDF, funding for skills and technology development. So far, we've been talking about leadership and some of the values, and I am quite fascinated about the things people look out for, and the fact that only 20% of my ability to succeed at work is based on technical skills. That is an amazing statistic, because it seems to me as if our educational institutions spend a lot more time training you for the 20%.
Absolutely.
Which is quite weird.
But this is what we spoke about the last time in January, that we're so focused on the exam result, and there's so many great people who fall by the wayside because they're more creative. They require a bit of time to express themselves, but you're sitting in an exam hall. This is the time, do it.
I'm just wondering whether the world of work also appreciates the importance of the values, because yes, in school a lot of it is on the right brain, performance metrics, things that can be measured, and not on the creativity and all those things. Does the world of work reward these things you're talking about: decisiveness, assertiveness, authenticity, self-awareness? Because in some contexts it's still purely result driven. So here is a sales team that wants you to deliver 200% in 2 months. Do you feel our world of work has also understood the importance of certain targets that make more use of these things rather than simply looking at measurable, how shall I say, outcomes?
The world of business, of sustainable business, is definitely looking at these things. A salesman who is not authentic, even though he can sell ice to the Eskimo, he has to be able to influence the person he's selling to. And if he hasn't got an air of authenticity about him, then you're losing sales. He's not being influential out there. He's just bringing in any other person who just got fed up of being harassed and said, okay, I'll buy it. But you want loyal customers. You want customers who understand the vision of the company and appreciate the values that the company brings. And your salesperson has to be an embodiment of that. If you look at businesses that have survived, they're the businesses who are willing to make some mistakes. Okay, those doing very well. Everyone knows that the medicine Viagra was not meant for that. It was meant for blood pressure. It went wrong, and this is what the company came up with. Now, the gentleman who made that mistake, if he was fired, his experiment thrown away, what are we doing? And we're talking in a place of science where things have to be exact,
where precision is more valued.
Absolutely. So if you want your business to be sustainable, to grow and be sustainable, then you really ought to look at people who come with some of these values.
Okay, so let's talk about managers. Who is a manager?
Most leaders are managers. Okay, but a manager in the traditional sense is focused on achieving results. Okay, his focus is not on developing a culture of winners. So I want to win, the company has to win. It doesn't matter if we have winners, no matter what we are, let's put systems in place to achieve that result. They rarely spend time telling employees why. They spend their time saying what has to be done, let's get it done, let's get cracking. Usually they're very frenzied, time-bound people. And deadlines are important, but you also have to appreciate that you set realistic timelines and deadlines so that it gives room for the best result, not just what can be done in the shortest space of time. The bottom line is a manager's concern. Consistently working out the figures, trying to show that I have reduced costs, never mind what it's doing to the people or the organization as a whole, delivering these results. They don't tend to encourage a two-way communication. Top-down is very heavy when you encounter people with strong manager style, and they tend to demand and request, and that also gives their followers a feeling of, do you even understand my environment, what I'm dealing with? Because I don't see you getting in there with me to appreciate and understand me. You're just sitting there and you want the bottom line achieved. The focus is on them. Whatever the team does, the results the team achieves is a reflection of them. Yeah.
That doesn't seem too positive. Is it that you've just chosen the negative aspects of management? Because I thought a manager also gets the job done. A manager achieves the result. A manager is.
But so do leaders. This is why I didn't want to separate the two. Okay. The manager who wants to lead and create leaders, as opposed to be followed by followers, also gets the job done. And probably will get it done in a shorter space of time if he understands his people and is able to then tap into their potential.
So in a sense, you're saying that you can't be an effective leader without being a good manager. but you can manage and yet not be a good leader. So that management is a subset of leadership.
Absolutely.
How long did it take me to figure that out? That's like 30 minutes. I must be growing old.
Absolutely, Bernard. Because when you, I mean, I started by asking you, how do we find our managers?
Mhm.
They're very good at what they do.
Yeah.
It's time for you to manage. But what are you managing? You're not just managing yourself anymore. You're not managing those systems and the routine that you're used to.
Mm.
Now I'm going to throw in some HR work.
Mhm.
You're going to do some financing work. You're going to do all these things that you never had to think about. And they're not groomed for it. So they're thrown in the deep end. So as soon as you get there, you want to achieve targets. You're focused on managing. You know, when I ask people, how are you? Oh, we're managing. I die inside.
Uh,
Tell me, is that a negative response or not? Because you
yes,
mentioned that I
yes,
seem to be picking out
you're
the
right.
negative.
It sounds
But
negative.
even in our
We are
language,
managing.
oh, I'm managing, I'm coping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds minimalist.
Yes. You haven't unleashed the potential. There's so much more in there, but you're doing along with what
Just it's interesting. It's got in many industries, particularly in media, people who find themselves in management are people who tend to have excelled with a particular skill somewhere.
Yes.
So, for example, I host a show for many years. I'm good at it, so I made an operations manager as an example. So most people who rise to become editors in newspapers are very good writers in the newspaper, and then they say, okay, this guy is so good, let's make him a manager. So he becomes something editor, which is actually a management role. And then it's not the same, because although he can write good stories for people to read and be happy, he's lousy with even motivating, doesn't even know how to talk to people. So is it that people succeed and they are promoted to their next level of failure, as they put it, so that in a sense, because I'm doing so well at my job, and even with footballers, so Diego Maradona, best footballer the world has ever seen, is given the Argentine team to manage, and it's an absolute disaster.
Precisely. But I mean, I have we all know that Germans are very good at managing systems and procedures.
Mhm.
They're very technical people. I had a German leader say to me, is this a Ghanaian or an African phenomena where you find somebody who's very good, and then when you promote them, they disappoint you? And I smiled. I didn't respond to that. Because it's not a Ghanaian or an African phenomena. It's the world over. You pick this person because they achieved a result, and then you give them all these things to do, as well as that thing that they were good at. But have you spent time developing these people?
You would have thought that the process of doing what they do, so here you are, and I'm struggling for an example, maybe in a football example, he's quite good on the pitch as a captain. He understands the various roles of various players, so he rallies the troops and they do well as a midfielder. Then you make him a coach, expecting that he would lead these 11 individuals to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not the training process? Is the fact that he did it himself as a footballer, is that not the training to become a good manager?
Okay, remember the last time we spoke, Bernard, I spoke about coaching and mentoring.
Yes.
And I said that coaching is usually supporting somebody with a skill that you once used.
Okay.
Okay. You still have that skill, but you used it, and so you know, and you can and empathize with the person's situation. Mentoring, however, I don't have to know that skill that you have. I'm looking at other things that will support you to do the thing that you do very well. And so you take a football captain and make him a coach. The dynamics have changed as a coach. He has to be thinking about the future. A whole lot of other things have come into play. When he was on the pitch, never had to think about it. But when you made him a coach, did you identify an ex-coach who can coach him on those areas that he's new to as a coach?
I think that's $1 million question. We'll take some comments. 05499869996. Questions coming through from my guest Cecilia Dei-Anang, who's helping us appreciate leaders and managers. At least I succeeded in realizing that managers are subsets of good leaders. So you can't be a good leader if you don't know how to manage. Management can be a good starting point to becoming a leader. And you can't be a good leader or an effective leader without being a good manager. So leadership is really what we should all aim at, an organizational leader, which is interesting because big organizations call their very high team, they call them the senior management team, or they call them I am in management. So maybe even the terminology and the nomenclature that these people use should change with a change of mindset. Okay, so a few thoughts coming through. Let me start with Twitter, Kojo.
Yeah.
Or should I start with
Twitter?
Okay, so Aaron Zioloki wants to ask, are leaders born or created? Two, what makes a leader unique in his field? I'm sure you've heard this question before. Are leaders born or created? Or you mean are leaders born or made? Sure, that's pretty simple for you to answer.
I think our environment does a lot to us. From a very tender age, some people are thrown into leadership. By the time they get to the office, any business, they seem like natural born leaders. But there's some sort of stimulation that must have happened sometime along their life before they got to the company that ignited that leadership quality, whether they were the first child in their family, whether as a child their parents helped them to become more independent so they can think, or life threw them into a scenario where they had to start doing critical thinking at a very tender age. Are they born naturally? I'm not sure that a 4-month-old lying there.
Isn't there genetics? I mean, the genes. Some people whose parents.
Well, I'm not a human biologist, so I can't speak to that. But I can say that yes, from a very tender age, leaders can be groomed.
So the environment is very important.
The environment and the stimulation that children have when they're from 8 months onwards. Yes.
Chris, Kofiga says, I'm very impressed about today's lesson. Thanks to your resource person. Now, somebody is asking a question which I don't understand, and I hope you can make sense of the question. He wants you to differentiate between a myopic and the word is hyperopic. I don't know what that means. A hyperopic leader. I've never heard that word in my life.
Maybe he was referring to hyperbolic or something.
Okay, so let's deal with text messages while we try and understand what that word means, because I don't understand the meaning of that word.
This message reads, hi, how do you encourage others in your organization to communicate the core values? From Felix Ej Mensah of Poverty-Free Ghana in Ejiso.
How do you encourage others
in your
to communicate the core values? How were those core values set up in the first place? Was there a consensus on these are the values that we should aspire to? And once it is there in your recruitment process, I mentioned that you look for people who fall within. They don't have to have the exact same core values, but they're values that support each other. Now, communicating core values is another topic on itself. It is not you putting up a mission statement or a vision statement. People want to see leaders walk the talk. So the talk is really only about the 20%.
What role does followership have in determining the quality of a leader? This comes up a lot in my discussions because some people say you only get the quality of leader you deserve, and then they say leaders emerge from the group beneath. So if you have bad leaders or poor quality leaders, it is very likely that the people, the mass of people from which this leader emerged, that group is also quite poor.
What is the value system of that group?
Okay.
What is the value system of that group? Because when your value systems change, and I dare say that we experiencing that in Africa, where because of poverty and hunger, certain things that we looked at as critical for leadership, we put that aside. It's the person who can speak very well and is able to pass a few bundles of money around during elections. Then we elect this person, and then when they get into power, we get angry that they don't have certain value systems. Was it critical in your decision making when you were choosing the leader? And I dare say followers belong to managers, actually.
What do you mean?
Because if you're a leader, you should embrace challenge from your team.
Mm.
You should embrace diversity because it helps you with your vision and your strategy. The bigger picture has everybody in it. If it's myopic, then it's about you and what you believe, and so then everyone else who doesn't fall in line with that, get out. So I really think that followers, the word followers, actually belongs to that myopic manager, and I'm using myopic a lot to let your listener feel that we haven't forgotten it.
It's great. Yeah, but did you get that question? I didn't really understand the.
That word is, I think there are a few letters missing from that text, but I think what he was talking about was a myopic. What did he say? Myopic manager.
What difference is myopic and hyperopic leader?
Hyperopic.
I don't know what. Yeah, hyperopic. All right. What makes a leader unique in his field? I don't know what this question. I'm sure it's your question, so you should answer. What makes a leader unique in his field?
The relevance he brings to his work.
The relevance he brings to his work. Is leadership field defined? If you want me to give it context, so can you take a great football coach and you ask him to manage a radio station, or you take a great head teacher and ask them to
manage a transport business,
or take them to a church to be a pastor. Are you in danger of losing your leadership success if we move you into a different context, or must a good leader be able to perform in a different context or environment? I don't know if the question makes sense.
Okay, it does. If you say a great headmistress leading a transport company, are the value systems the same?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
So it's the value systems we should be looking at.
Yes.
How they match.
Yes, because it's the only thing that will drive somebody to give of themselves and beyond.
So you can see how a headmistress could become a teacher in a Sunday school or something related.
Something
with
related
similar
to
values.
Those, absolutely.
But not in a mining company.
Not necessarily. And we do that a lot. We move leaders around.
So the key point is that we should look at the values, because that's what drives the person to want to perform.
Yes.
Very interesting answer. There's another comment. It's more like a question.
Yes. Gifty from Kintampo says, I've been following your discussions and it's gingered me to start a piggery. Can you direct me to one of your resource persons for business advice?
I think the best person would be a gentleman who came last week on the how to present your business plan from the
China.
Yes, no, his name is Mr. Ayiku. Yes, so I'll link you up with this, Ayiku. Franklin says, excellent education by your guest. I have been well educated today. Now, Cecilia, a lot of people listening to you want to develop themselves to become good leaders because they've heard it, they've seen it. Not all of them may have had the foundation. Where do you start? I want to take responsibility for my life and I want to become a great leader for my family, in my workplace, in my community, in my country. Where should I start from?
Start with yourself. Master yourself. Understand what your value systems are. Now, you could write down a list of values, maybe 10 or 12, but you must know which ones come up and encapsulate the others. Okay? So you might say that love is one of your values. But down the list, you've also written compassion, kindness, all those things fit under love. Come up with 3 or 4 that you can remember off the top of your head. With every thing you do, ask yourself, am I demonstrating my values?
So that's where I start from.
So you start with yourself.
It's easier said than done, because here I am trying to think of what are my values.
It can be dynamic, the values as well. At 16, your value system is totally different from the value systems you would have at age 30. So this is why the exercise of self-mastery is a consistent thing.
So master yourself, very important.
Yes.
And then what?
And then check with others if you're actually demonstrating that. Because a leader who can't influence, a leader who doesn't walk the talk cannot influence. People will see through you and dismiss you. And there's no point being a leader who is not influential.
There's no point being a leader who's not influential. So then the most important effect of leadership is influence.
Influence is critical.
Positive
because
influence.
you can't do everything yourself.
you define Hitler as a leader, and which means that the influence can be negative, but it's still
Absolutely.
influence.
It is
So we
influence.
shouldn't put this in a box. I see. What about self-help material, reading books, studying other leaders? Can you understudy a great leader and learn how to lead from them?
I mentioned earlier that leaders connect, they infuse and unleash.
Mm.
Or I put it in self-mastery.
Connect, infuse, and unleash.
Yes, they connect with people and they infuse. So they don't necessarily sit people down and say, did you see the way I walked in today? This is how you must walk in. No, they're just themselves and people emulate them. So yes, you can read on leadership, but if you're not practicing it in every aspect of your life, it's not going to become second nature.
Some of the people I admire most as leaders are very quiet people, not very extroverted.
Yes.
Some people call them level 5 leaders.
Yeah.
Even in the Ghanaian context,
Mhm.
I don't know if I can mention names. They are very reserved people,
Yeah.
yet they achieve a lot, particularly Kenneth Oriata and all these characters.
Yeah.
What can we say about that? Is that something we can generalize, or it really depends?
They're usually very reflective people. They think a lot.
Mm.
And people who think a lot learn to master themselves, their emotions. They process things. They don't react off the cuff. So that's why they seem reserved.
Mm.
But when you sit with them, you realize that, whoa, a reserved person cannot be this open or know so much. If they're a recluse, they would know
and
so
they are
much.
very determined.
And they deal with people. They deal with lots of people.
So they've mastered themselves.
They've mastered
And
themselves.
they are deep thinkers.
They're thinkers.
Mm.
They're critical thinkers as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. I just give those examples because I always wonder how they've been able to achieve so much and yet they're so reserved.
They look reserved.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. And even if you're with them, they are very controlled. In they don't give off too much, and
Yes.
yet they can extract a lot from you
Yes.
all the time.
They're different.
Very, very
Yes.
different. Somebody wants me to ask you what book you can recommend on leadership, and the list I mentioned includes Otabil. So people like that, they
But
very
I knew you were talking about him.
yes, Otabil,
He popped into my mind.
Ken Oforiatta,
immediately,
Patrick
yeah.
Ewa, people like that,
Yeah.
very, very high achievers, but very, very quiet, and you even sometimes mistake that for a weakness, but it's actually a characteristic of what you said. Tony wants to know what book you can recommend on leadership.
Oh my.
Yes, he wants to know. He wants it
There
now,
are
now,
so
now.
many. Start with, well, Toyin, I don't know what your religious affiliation is, but start with your religious text.
Okay, it's a good place to start.
It's a good place to start.
Your religious text, whether it's the Quran, the Bible, or anything.
because absolutely you're
Mhm.
mastering yourself. Leaders are very grounded people. When you meet them, they may not tell you what grounds them, but there's some aspect to aligning their mind, body, and soul.
You definitely have to listen to this again tonight. Quick 2 texts from Kojo before we run off.
Yeah, Isaac Amo in Accra says, I agree management is a subset of leadership. We need to make sure we don't separate the two as they are both needed to achieve generational results. Some leaders recruit very good managers to help fill that gap. I'd like to join you to the resource person. Okay, this one says, well, Michelle Pascal is my name. Your guest has made me happy this morning. She's taught me a lot on how to control my business. I feel like going back to school to be like her, and I'm happy. Okay,
To
so
seek for her advice.
yes.
And then find out what type of a temperament can a good leader belong to. This is from Asari. Do you
I
broach
know the
subject of
temperaments,
temperament
but
issue?
Bernard, you know I don't do that.
You are not into temperaments.
No, I'm not into pigeonholing and boxing people up.
At all. She says she feels like going back to school, and I think she's suggesting that you learned all you did in school. I can assure you that this is not a school issue.
Yeah.
This is not a school
Yeah.
issue, but education does help.
Education helps. It helps you decipher things and you know prioritize things. But much of what I'm talking to you about has come from observation and experience, talking to people who are leaders and learning from them as well.
Listeners, please take a second bite of the cherry tonight at 7:05 p.m. after Point Blank, because trust me, there's a lot of stuff in there that escaped you. Cecilia Dei-Anang, our guest, a director at Ringier, and I'm sure I can call you a consultant without getting into trouble.
Yes, well, I support people
So you support
with their
people.
development. Yes.
Nice one. Maybe I should make you my personal coach, or leadership coach, or something.
No comments.
Before we check out of here, the Skills Development Fund is helping people and businesses to move to the next level. We are receiving Scotvet is receiving skills and technology development proposals from businesses in the private sector for possible funding. This is the 5th call for proposals and is running till 21st July. You can actually come into our secretariat, SDF Secretariat, on the 26th of June from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. to take advantage of this. Our project support unit is fully available to address any concern you might have.